Sal Berry and Tim Parrish. This is the Puck Junk Podcast.
Hello and welcome to another episode of the Puck Junk Hockey Podcast. I'm Sal Berry, and along with me is Tim Parrish. And today we're going to talk about the Miracle on Ice hockey game and collectibles related to that for the 40th anniversary of that 1980 U.S. Olympic hockey team winning the gold medal. We're also going to recap National Hockey Card Day, and we're going to talk about some NHL things, mainly the Stadium Series that just happened about a week ago, and then the feud. I love it, a feud between Daniel Carcillo and Paul Bissonnette. So Twitter feuds are not just the thing of musicians and politicians and stuff like that. We got hockey players, former hockey players feuding. So, Tim, how are you today? Are you feuding with anybody at the moment?
Armed and ready.
Armed and ready. Armed
Yes.
and dangerous.
Yes. No, I'm doing good. I'm like a pit bull in a butcher shop.
That's a good analogy, yeah. So, my aunt has 3 pit bulls, and they're fat. They're fat pit bulls. They eat a lot. They look like they live in a butcher shop.
Well, I could say I'm as happy as a tick on a fat dog. That would work too.
Yeah, until that dog gets dipped, and then that tick is no longer happy.
That's true.
So, and yeah, who wants to be? I'd rather be the dog than the tick on the dog. But anyway, so Stadium Series. I didn't watch it. I was too busy going to a Chicago Wolves hockey game, watching them lose to the Grand Rapid Griffins, which were wearing like alternate jerseys, which looked like Red Wing jerseys, except for having the Grand Rapid Griffiths logo on it. And then I'm like watching, and I'm like, wait, why is Taro Hirose in Grand Rapids right now?
Yeah, I thought the same thing when you sent that picture of my boy Eric Tangradi on the bench there. That was good to see him involved in a game. I know for a while it was questionable as to whether or not he was gonna get signed to a contract or be put on another team, but he's back.
Tangradi?
Yeah.
He's bounced around quite a bit since he broke into the league. Yeah, he was playing in the KHL for a little while. Looks like he played with the Devils last year.
Yeah, he was in the Devils organization, and then he didn't get signed, and he was going to go overseas, and seems like he's back.
So anyway, so I didn't watch the Stadium Series. Did you watch that game?
And I sure did.
Keeping up with the shit show that followed.
Yeah, the game was actually fairly decent after the first period. The Kings won 3-1, but the game was played at Falcon Stadium. For those that didn't know, Falcon Stadium is the stadium for the U.S. Air Force Academy in Colorado Springs. It is, for lack of a better word, not a stadium that would necessarily be capable of handling an event like this. The NHL continues to keep doing stadium events and outdoor games and hyping up the majesty of playing outside. And I'm fine with that. I mean, a lot of people are burned out on it and think it's a cash grab. And I mean, it is what it is, but the events are fun. They're usually well done, put on. But this particular one had some major hangups. Number one, the traffic was absolutely horrible. There were huge lines for concession and bathrooms, the parking issues left and right. And somebody died in the process of trying to get out of the place. So, I mean, there were a lot of issues that came up during the thing because the building and the facilities just were not capable of handling that kind of thing. So you have all these traffic delays that you can expect. I mean, even with when everybody descends upon the town under normal, circumstances for a football game, you still get a clog of people. But I mean, it was a mess, and the fallout. I mean, as more and more things come out of stuff that went on, and the takes of the different media members that were there, and other people have been telling their stories about what it was like to get in and out of that place. I mean, there was a whole group of media people that I've heard talk about this that left after the first period because they knew they were never going to get out of there.
What I want to know is, this stadium has a big capacity. Why didn't it work? See, I can understand if you're trying to cram 50,000 people in a stadium that seats 20,000 people. Getting in and out, that, having, being able to accommodate that many people for bathrooms and for parking and for concessions and stuff like that. And I understand that there were some problems with the highway. There was only one highway that went in and out or something like that, and that there was construction on the road which slowed it down, because then it went down to 2 lanes or whatever. Yeah. And what I want to know is, why did all the other things fail?
Well, I mean, you're not talking about sticking 43,000 people in a 90,000 seat stadium. Falcon Stadium only holds about 45,000. So selling 43,000 seats, you're almost at capacity. And of course, it's a hockey game and not a football game. So the orientation on the field and the way the rink is set up and everything else is a little bit different. So, it was near capacity crowd right off the bat. And they kind of showed, they would flash to the crowd during the game and you can kind of see how many people were in there. But honestly, there were a ton of empty seats right off the bat. And because people still hadn't gotten to their seats yet when they started the whole pregame ceremonies and the flyovers and all of that kind of stuff. So, which was really cool. I mean, it seemed like it'd be a great event. They had musical performances and all sorts of stuff that went on. But like I said, the logistics of it started to fall apart when they realized that they couldn't handle the amount of people that were trying to come in all at once. They didn't have enough concession areas available. They didn't have enough bathrooms. They didn't even have makeshift bathroom, enough porta potties or anything to go around to stop people from standing in line forever.
What I'm trying to understand is, but if it was a football game that had 45,000 people, why would it not have had those same problems? That's what I'm trying to understand.
I don't know. I don't know if they had. I mean, they do get the traffic congestion, and they always announce it that you should come early to the game.
Right.
But I'm not familiar with that area, but I know there were some road condition changes, and traffic was rerouted beforehand for various reasons, which they didn't plan for. Something like, I think I heard they were doing emergency pothole repairs or something like that. So it's kind of like you have 43,000 people and you're pushing them into a funnel,
Yeah,
so
I get that
big
analogy.
opening, and you have this little exit point, and that's what caused all the problems. But
what I'm trying to
I don't know that
understand,
they have that problem during football games.
Why is that? Is it because people come early and tailgate for 5 hours beforehand, and so they just gradually show up?
Could be. I don't know. I can't say I'm a big college football person, and even if I was, I don't know that I would know really what's going on with Air Force.
No, that's cool.
But so I couldn't really speak to that, but I just know that it was a big mess, and like I said, somebody even died. A guy fell off a walkway bridge and was killed during the exit process. I think it was near the north gate of the building. So, I mean, it was a mess. I mean, from a TV standpoint, yeah, it looked great sitting in my living room, but I mean, there were people talking that it was hours before they were able to get in and get out.
Yeah, and like you said, sitting in my living room, that's a great point, because I know last year when the Winter Classic was held at Notre Dame Stadium, and it was Bruins and Blackhawks, and somebody offered me tickets. I didn't know how great the tickets were. I wasn't going to be like, well, that depends. Are these nosebleeds or are these really good tickets? Somebody offers you tickets for free. You don't get picky, right? I just say, oh, thank you or no, thank you, right? And I thought
Right.
about it and I said, no, thank you. I mean, they emailed me and I emailed them back and I said, no, thank you. And the reason was because one, it'd be a 3-hour drive to get there. Two, it'd be a 3-hour drive to get home. Three, it'd be really cold outside. And four, I'd probably enjoy watching the game more on my TV at home than watching it in person. Even though that would have been cool. That's what that was just kind of like my part of my decision making process. I remember in 2009 when they had the Winter Classic in Chicago, uh, they had that at Wrigley Field. Now I do regret not going to that one because that would have been cool. Because honestly, I live in the city. Wrigley Field is like 15 minutes away from where I live by train. So I mean, I could get there in like half an hour tops. You know what I mean? Assuming that I have to wait 10 minutes for a train and then walk 5 minutes from the train stop to Wrigley Field. So that would have been ideal for me. But I was just like, it's gonna be cold outside and it's January 1 and I want to stay home. And then like as far as the stadium series goes, like I've been to Soldier Field in the winter before and it's really cold. And I was just like, and I mean that was the one where they beat the Penguins, so that would have been fun to see for obvious reasons. But
Allegedly,
allegedly, what?
they beat the Penguins.
That's the only outdoor game the Blackhawks have won, if I remember correctly. So because they lost to like pretty much every other time they played outdoors, they've lost, and so I don't see the appeal of it because I mean, yeah, I get it. It's cold outside, but there's a reason why I don't go to Bears games because it's cold. Well, because the tickets are expensive. I don't really care, but also because it's really cold outside. But I'll tell you this. If the Blackhawks do end up being in another Winter Classic or Stadium Series, because, they are every 2 to 3 years. I'm trying to think of like what places have they not played yet in Chicago. The where the White Sox play. Now it's called Guaranteed Rate Arena. Used to be U.S. Cellular Field. I
I
still
still
call it
call it
Comiskey
Comiskey.
Park.
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
it will
So,
be Comiskey until the day I die.
although I loved when the people called it the cell block for U.S. Stadium Field, but
Yeah,
or U.S.
U.S.
Cellular Field,
Cellular.
but Guaranteed Rate Arena is just such a it's like a big red arrow pointing down, and it's just like, yep, that's the team that's emblematic of the team. They should just have that as their logo, like an arrow pointing down. Um,
Uh,
so I'd consider that, but I mean, for the most part, yeah, they always seem like a mess, and I'm just not that interested in freezing my butt off, paying $8 for a hot dog, and then waiting an hour to get the hell out of the stadium.
well, I know with the Notre Dame one, they ran out of food like before the first period ended.
That's right.
Yeah, and they had a problem with the bathroom lines too. Because the other thing too, Notre Dame is, they don't. I mean, they do things a little differently. They're, obviously, with a college and an independent college at that, and a Catholic college. I mean, they have different rules and they run things differently. So, having a major sport come in that is full of people that like to imbibe on the spirits, they weren't capable of handling that. So
How do you run out
that
of
was
food?
they just didn't anticipate what they were getting into. And same, like I said, same thing happened here. I mean, you have to imagine that they already have traffic problems as it is during the football games. And like I said, I can't speak to that, but I imagine they would still have those issues. But at the same time, when things start to fall apart, they fell apart quick. And, the whole thing started being dubbed on Twitter as NHL's version of the Fire Festival because it was just a mess. I mean, they even tweeted out, the Air Force tweeted out from their flyovers some pictures,
Hmm.
and they inadvertently took pictures of like the stadium area that showed a wider shot, and
Hmm.
you could see, and it was like just after the game started, you could still see the traffic trying to get in and out of the place. It was absolutely insane. But
What was the Fire
it is what it
Festival,
is.
for those who don't know?
The Fire Festival was some big concert event that was being held and turned into like this just giant logistical mess.
Oh, yeah.
It was I think it was held in like on some island somewhere, if I'm not mistaken.
Okay, so hopefully the NHL will do a little better next time they have
That's
another.
the thing. I think the NHL did good with with their portion of it, but I don't. I mean, yeah, of course the NHL people were involved with the logistics and everything of it, but at the same time, man, the people there, the facilities people, and everything else, you would think they have to at least anticipate and work with them on this, but they'll figure it out. Hopefully, the next time around, won't be as big of a mess.
All right, so speaking of big messes, let's talk about the Twitter feud between
You gotta love those segues. They're just perfect.
segues. Yeah,
They're
I'm always looking
perfect.
for the perfect segue. So big mess. Now we're going to talk about Daniel Carcillo and Paul Bissonnette, and they be fighting on Twitter.
This is a long kind of story that was involved here, but essentially what happened is Carcillo went after Bissonnette as well as other people, many of his coworkers, and was essentially attacking them online. He was told numerous times to stop by numerous people and to back off, and with nothing but respect, because everybody respects what Carcillo has tried to do with his life after hockey, but at the same time, he drags a bunch of issues in, and it's really the proverbial pot calling the kettle black in most cases. This latest one, he went after Jeremy Roenick, of course, who was recently fired by NBC. And we speculated the last time around where he was going to end up. And one of the places I said was Barstool, which could actually happen, but we'll see. But yeah, Carcillo went after him as being, misogynistic and, sexist and all this kind of stuff. And then he attacked the guys on Spit and Chicklets for various things, and namely went after Paul. And decided to, instead of logically going after him, he actually brought up an article that was written and has been plastered all over both social media and a lot of different hockey feeds. That was written about Bissonnette being the quote unquote most influential man in hockey. And most of that has to do with the fact that his media stardom, if you want to call it, has been boosted, namely because of the Spit and Chicklets podcast, but he's everywhere. He does interviews, he goes places, he does interviews with players. I mean, it's so he's out there and he's very accessible, and he's not afraid to do an interview with people, and so he does that. So the Globe and Mail, which I'm not familiar with, but a writer, Jamie Ross, reached out to him and he agreed to do the interview. So they came out with this article. Well, Carcillo basically throws it out there that this article was like a distraction to take away from the whole Roenick thing. Well, that article came out before Roenick was even on the show. And
Really?
He said the things that he said. Yeah. So, he's making jabs about this article that had nothing to do with JR at all. And he was told to back off and stop talking about it and back off numerous times. And, you can only poke the bear so many times before they snap. So Biz Nasty took to Twitter and basically called Carcillo out on all of his crap.
Now,
and it became public.
just before we get into that part, so what I just want to say is that, I mean, even before the Spitting Chicklets podcast, Paul Bissonnette had a pretty big following on Twitter anyway, because he would tweet some hilarious stuff.
Oh,
And
he
then,
was extremely entertaining.
and then even like when he was with the Coyotes, he would do like these hilarious videos. Like they did, my favorite one is like, what is a grocery stick? Did you ever see that one?
I don't know if I saw that one or
Okay,
not.
so a grocery stick. I love this analogy, by the way. So it's a derogatory term for a player that doesn't get a lot of ice time. So you know how like they'd say if you're at the end of the bench, you're not going to play, right? Like maybe in football or something. I don't know. You ever play football or
Yeah,
baseball? Where do you put the
yeah,
bench warmer kids or the bench warmers? They're at the end of the bench, right?
pretty much.
Okay, but in hockey, you know, at one end of the bench, there's a defenseman, right? Because they're exiting in the one door, and the other end of the bench, there's the forwards, right? Because they're exiting towards more towards the attacking zone, right?
Right, right.
So the grocery stick is the player that sits between the defenseman and the forwards, right? Because he separates the two because he's the guy who's not moving. He's not moving off the bench, so he just sits in the middle. I mean, some of my guys have done that in like rec league when they're like hurt a little bit and they just
Yeah,
want to sit out a shift or two. They'll just like sit down in between the forwards and the defensemen, right? Because they don't want to be in the way. But in the NHL, it's like if you're sitting in the middle of the bench, you're probably not and you're not moving, you're the grocery stick. You're the guy who's separating the one from the other, right? So he did this video about being a grocery stick. He just like, and some people call me grocery stick, and that's mean and that hurts my feelings. And it was hilarious. So I mean, he's made fun of himself. The only Chicklets podcast I listened to was the one with Ronick. I mean, I guess I'm just a little slow on the uptake. I don't have the highest opinion of Barstool Sports because I know a lot of their fans, aka the Stoolies, they'll harass people if they disagree with one of the writers. I know a lot of them are misogynistic and they'll go after a particular sports writer in Chicago, a female sports writer whom I'm acquainted with, and the Stoolies will just attack her. So I have a hard time embracing anything Barstool just because I've seen the worst of what it can bring out in people. And so I don't know. I'm not a huge fan of that. So that's why I just couldn't care less about the Spitting Chicklets podcast because I kind of have this opinion about Barstool Sports already.
But you
But
can have an opinion based off of actions that resulted in something that you may or may not have agreed with. Carcillo basically took this to say everybody was this label, everybody was X, everybody was this, and nobody should listen to anything they say, and blah, blah, blah. And basically threw out there that, it's a bunch of guys, it's just a bunch of guys with sitting around and, doing what guys do, to which he got called out on it. And they're like, look, Barstool Sports, the CEO is a woman. And, people would post articles and stuff like that to him that, from her and, interviews and all this kind of stuff. And his response to all of that was, oh, it's just a PR move, which basically fried him even more when it came to his credibility as far as stuff goes. But, it came out, and like I said, you could only poke so many times, but it came out some stuff that um, Carcillo allegedly did in the past as a player.
mm-hmm.
And it went from allegedly to being verified by not only other players, but
Mm-hmm.
Dan finally admitted it himself and came out with a pseudo apology video owning up to all of the things he did in the past, but he basically still said that he's still in the right by doing what he did. But
Okay, and just to elaborate on that a little bit. Oh no, and let me ask one question just to
sure.
clarify. Was he was he going after Bissonnette because he's blaming Bissonnette for what happened to Ronick?
No, he's
Okay.
basically lumping him into the same category as, you know, this person that uh, is whatever label you want to put on him. You know what I mean? Since we're putting labels on people as bigots or racists or
Okay. So
sexist or
he's
whatever
saying
else.
he's calling Bissonnette saying Bissonnette is one or more of these things
Pretty much. And
because of his affiliation with Barstool.
I think that's part of it.
Okay.
But there's been an ongoing thing with them for a long time between them, and Carcillo asked to never be mentioned on the show, like ever. So anytime something comes up about him, they always like conveniently leave out his name. Now, people that listen to the show know who he's talking about. And that's the thing. They always support him in what he does as far as his crusade to make the game safer and his work with CTE and all of that kind of stuff.
Yes.
But to know the kind of player he was and to go back on his career and to be another player in the NHL that knows him and played with him, it's very hard for them to swallow some of the stuff that he spews because they know what he was like. And that, I think that's where the whole hypocrisy of the whole thing comes in.
Now, Bissonnette mentioned that the two things was that Carcillo, when they were playing together for the Wilkes-Barre Scranton Penguins in the AHL, that Carcillo called Bissonnette the N-word, and Carcillo wore which he admitted, and that Carcillo wore a robe in the locker room, like a bathrobe, I guess, with the swastika embroidered on the back. But you couldn't see. I guess the robe had
it was actually underneath the hood of the robe.
So it was like a boxer's robe that had like a hood, like that kind of robe, kinda.
Kind of, yeah.
You know, because I've had a bathrobe and it never had a hood.
Yeah. Well, yeah, it had like a hood on the back, and apparently the swastika was embroidered on the underside of the hood, to which his response to that, I don't even know how to embroider, I think was one of the things he said.
Well, and I was going to
say, that
doesn't
really mean it wasn't there.
If you're going to embroider something, not that okay, but let me put it to this way. I mean, let's talk about like the steps to committing to something, right? Like if I was going to put a insignia on something that I was wearing, the easiest thing to do would be me to take a black magic marker and to draw it, right? And then the next step up from that would be like an iron-on patch, right? And then the next step from that would be like what? Having it silk screened, right? And then the next step out of that,
more and more effort to do so.
Right. And then to like an embroidered patch, like if you think about like, I mean, let me go back here, and by the way, I'm making light of just the fact that something was embroidered. I'm not saying that what was embroidered was cool, but I remember like a few years ago when we bought our beer league hockey team jerseys, right? And I was looking into the different things, and I'm like, oh man, I really want embroidered patches, right? I want my team to have embroidered like NHL style logos. They were so freaking expensive. We went for the next best thing, which was dye sublimation. Dye sublimation on a piece of fabric, which was then cut out and then sewed to the jersey, and it looked good. Didn't look as good as like an embroidered Blackhawk logo or an embroidered Penguins logo. I mean, those are awesome, right? So I'm saying if you have something bad embroidered on something you wear, you're really committed to that thing, you know. Yeah. And it's not a joke anymore.
Yeah, and
it's never a joke to begin with, but.
Well, Biz brought it up. I mean, threw it out there on Twitter. He's like, look, if you're going to take to Twitter and do this, I've had enough. So what about the time? And he just laid it out there. And then all of a sudden it was like, whoa, shit just got real. And you're like, okay. And of course, like I said, Carcillo didn't deny any of the stuff that he said. He did deny having the swastika on his robe, but then there were text messages with other players to Paul that he posted, basically saying, yeah, I was there, I remember. And you know, and that's the thing. You go after somebody in the media, what does the media have? They have the media. So they can use that and do whatever. And you could take the high road on this, but the high road was taken and he was told, stop, it's enough, you know, back off. We're done with this. And he just, you know, kept going. So it just escalated and escalated and escalated. And it became this battle back and forth to where, the one said one thing and the other would say another, and then other people were getting involved. JR even tweeted some stuff out about Dan.
What did
Uh,
JR have to say, if you
it
recollect?
wasn't really anything specific. It was just like, like whatever, dude. Like, go on, live your life, kind of thing.
Right.
Because I mean, obviously, it's not in his best interest to get into it with anybody right now. But
No, it's not.
uh, so yeah, so Biz was pissed off, and he said what he needed to say, and he went on the show on Monday and basically spent the first, I don't know, 12 minutes of the show maybe,
Mm-hmm.
basically just laying it all out there and saying, look, I respect you for what you do. I, I, I applaud what you're trying to do. I think you should keep doing it and all of this kind of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But this has got to end. And it's got to end now. And, apparently they talked to each other and had a conversation, and I don't know. I mean, it's just it's one of those goofy things, and I'm sure it's not over. But for people that are on social media and or follow these guys, it's been entertaining reading. Let's
Mm-hmm.
put it that way.
Yeah, it's kind of, I mean, yeah, I'm just here for the comments, right? Jiff eating
Yeah.
popcorn, right? Like,
I
whatever.
mean, that's exactly what it is.
Yeah. I mean, obviously, I mean, I've had this whole love-hate thing with Daniel Carcillo. Like, when he was at the Coyotes, I freaking loved him. I was like collecting his cards. I was like watching Coyotes games. Now the Coyotes back in like 2006, 7, 8 was his rookie season. So like say right around there, right around the time Gretzky was coaching the team, the Coyotes were a shit show, right? Gretzky didn't know how to coach, and I'm basing that statement on what I've read from other players, where Gretzky would just say things like, well, you should be able to do this. This is easy. And they'd be like, no, it's easy for you, dude, because you're the great one. And for us, this is not very easy. You know what I mean? So he wasn't, he was only the coach to be a publicity stunt for the team. And he was making $8 million a year to coach the team. So, yeah, I mean, I would do that too for $8 million a year. The team had a lot of young guys that were not NHL ready pushed into the lineup. And then Carcillo would go out there, and every now and then he would do something brilliant. They'd put him out there in front of the net. He had good hands. He could chip in goals. He kind of reminded me a little bit of Bob Probert in the sense that he was formidable, but he had good hands. And I thought, okay, this kid's going to go somewhere, right? He's going to be that tough, gritty forward, that tough guy who can actually play the game, right? But then and obviously the Flyers thought the same thing, because when they went on that that, not to say this was pre Yager and pre Brizgalov, but they signed him to the team, and then he kind of just became more of a goon. Yep. And then I didn't like him then, because I'm like, well, this is not the Daniel Carcillo that goes out there and does something, gets a clutch goal or causes chaos in front of the net and, gets the rebound or whatever. This is Daniel Carcillo that goes around and picks fights with guys who are under his weight class. And I didn't like him for that, right? And then when he came to the Blackhawks, I was just kind of indifferent to him. Like, why do we have this guy? Well, I guess Kane and Taves can't fight. Burish can fight. Actually, Burish was off the team by then. So, and then there's that great. There's
only room for one.
Yeah, pretty much. But yeah. So I mean, he was on the team in 2013, and then he left, and then he came back for the 14-15 season. Which I was surprised. Like, oh, back with the Blackhawks. Okay. Sure, why not, right? So, like I said, I went from loving to hating to being indifferent, even though when he was on my team, at that point, I was just kind of like, all right, whatever. But I was actually, what's actually kind of made me come back around to liking Daniel Carcillo again, not that my praise or affection or whatever, admiration, probably better word, for a player, matters to that player or to anybody who's listening. But when I read the Game Change, The Life and Death of Steve Montador, written by Ken Dryden, and he talked a lot with Carcillo because Carcillo considered Steve Montador his best friend. And he was so hurt by his death. And he was so, I mean, that's what motivated him to want to do all this like anti-fighting, anti-bullying, CTE research and all these other things, right? So that kind of made me come around and say, okay, well, maybe you weren't the greatest guy in your NHL career, but now you're trying to do something that could potentially make life better for a lot of hockey players. And I have a lot of respect for that. So that's kind of like where I came around. So when I saw him do this, I'm like, no, what are you doing? No, why do you have to diss another person? Like,
Yeah,
I've
and
never heard
that's
anybody say anything bad about Paul Bissonnette, other than maybe he's not the greatest skater, right? Or he's a grocery stick or whatever, right? But nobody had anything bad to say about him as a person.
Ryan Whitney had something bad to say.
Well, but those guys BS because they're. Are you
Yeah, I
talking about
know.
in their commercial?
Yeah, that's
It's
funny.
Paul Bissonnette, not Paul Bissonnette.
Yeah,
That is such a great commercial.
it is.
I don't even like, what is it, vodka? Oh, actually, I like vodka.
It's pink lemonade infused vodka.
Yeah, okay, that sounds good. I'll try it.
My favorite Carcillo moment was not, I didn't like it because of him, but he was involved, and it was the Game 6 of the playoffs in 2009 when the Flyers were up 3-0 on the Pens, and he fought Max Talbot. And at the end of the fight, Talbot skates off the ice and shushes the crowd. That's one of my favorite moments.
How did Talbot do in that fight?
Not very good.
Not very good. So why'd he shh the crowd?
Because the crowd was all cheering and going nuts because it was in Philly. And he basically like shushed the crowd, which was motivation to like bring the team up because they were playing flat that whole game. But yeah, so that was one of my favorite moments involving Carcillo. But yeah, I mean, not to beat a dead horse, but it goes back to the whole thing of how you were as a player in your career, and you were one way, and you were that way, and you made a career out of being like that, and now all of a sudden you flipped, probably for the better, and you're trying to do things to better the game, but it's like now instead of remembering how you were and moving on from there and being different now, you're gonna be different now and also point fingers at everybody else when you were one of the worst of all. And that's what bothers me, and I think that's what bothered a lot of people, and eventually they had enough. So
yeah, so anyway, just thought that was kind of fun to look into and talk about. So to put a bow on this one before we head to our next topic.
Yes.
All right. Hockey Card Day. National Hockey Card Day.
National Hockey Card Day.
So
that was fun.
Yeah.
So I went to a couple shops. How many did you go to?
I went to like 3 shops. I got some packs from each shop. I pulled the Gritty insert. From what I could tell by a couple of things, by the amount of people on the trade group, it seems like a lot of them got at least one insert card. And just from looking online and seeing that there's quite a few. So the inserts were the Victory Black Rookies and the mascots, right? And what I'm seeing is that I'm seeing people selling those on eBay as sets of 5, especially with the mascots. There's a lot of like set of 5 mascots, both the Canadian and the American. So what I'm thinking is that the mascots were probably 1 in every 10 packs or so, because I'm thinking or like 1 per box, because dealers will order them by the box, right? So dealer might order 3 boxes and they might only give away 2 boxes to like different people who come in, and then they might have an extra box and then just say, all right, open them up, and they open them up, because it seems like these are being sold as full sets, right? Whereas I remember in years past, like an insert was like really far and few between, and you'd see like 1 Victory Black Rookie or another Victory Black Rookie. You wouldn't see all 5 of them being sold at the same time. You know what I mean? Or like the Vegas Golden Knight inserts, you would see one here, one there. You wouldn't see like all of them sold together, right?
Yeah, I think the Victory Blacks in previous years were a lot more scarce. I didn't get any, but I saw what you're saying online with people, and there's lots of them out there, a lot more than would normally be exposed.
So you think that some of them were harder to get than others, although I don't think there were any short prints as far as any short prints as far as like the 15 cards.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think they were short printed, but at least in my experience, the Cody Glass card and the Ryan Suter card were like few and far between. Those are the ones that never showed up. And there were other people in the one store that we were at. There were other people opening them up, and nobody was getting them. My local card shop owner texted me later in the day and said, "Hey, I was able to scrounge up a couple of those."
That is so frustrating because I remember the first year how hard it was to put together a set because Upper Deck told me that they had a sequencing problem with the way the cards were packed out. Because I remember Pecorine being impossible. I mean, I remember paying $1 each for Pecorine cards just to complete some sets because I'd have some sets that had all the cards except Pecorine. So I was like I paid a dealer, he had like 5 of them, and he like wanted $1 each, or I don't know what we agreed on, but that was kind of like my threshold. Like, yeah, okay, cool, man. I just want to finish some sets, right? So yeah, it is a little frustrating when they're that hard to put together.
Yeah. I was still able to get at least one. So
that's good. And I mean, there are trade groups and stuff. And, you know, honestly, there's a lot of these cards out there. So I don't think any of the sets from years past are particularly hard to find. I should probably hunker down and get all the Canadian sets because I don't have every Canadian set. I believe I have all of the American sets. And I got to double check that because there was like one year I was sick and I didn't go out and get any packs. And then there was just another year I wasn't feeling it, so I just didn't even bother. But I might have found the set for like $5 at a show or something, you know. So it's a pretty easy set to put together. I think it's fun to kind of. I mean, it's a small set, not really like a huge accomplishment to put together, but I think it's fun to do that. Like I like last year I tried to get all of the Upper Deck. They had the Hockey Card Day sets. They had the various arena giveaway sets. They had the Vancouver Canucks cards that were sold at Subway sandwich shops in Vancouver, which I didn't get. They had the what was it called? Family Day promotion, which obviously got a few sets of that.
I wonder why.
Yeah, we'll have to talk about that in a future episode. And you know, and like just all the Notre Dame set that was like 6 cards that was given away for like the Notre Dame Winter Classic set. So I was like trying to get all of those little like one-off Upper Deck sets that had like, you know, 6 cards, 10 cards, 15 cards, whatever. You know what I mean? And there was like over 100 of them. And I've always found those fun to collect. And it was even more challenging to try to get them all, which I didn't. But still, that's part of the challenge of being a collector is you try.
That's true.
So yeah, I mean, overall, I liked the set. A little disappointed that the Chris Chelios card had him as a Canadian, but I know in years past they made a Chris Chelios card in a Hockey Card Day set that pictured him as an American, as a not an American, as a Blackhawk. So
he was I don't think I even noticed that.
Yeah, Montreal.
I think I might have saw red and figured it was Detroit.
Yeah, no, it's a Montreal Canadian card. So yeah, it was a pretty solid set. Excited about Cody Glass being in that set because he's kind of up and down with the Vegas Golden Knights and the Chicago Wolves. By the way, they're not going to be affiliated with each other next season.
Yeah, Vegas has got their own team that they bought.
They got their own team that they bought,
yeah.
Which makes sense if you can buy a team. I'm a little worried because the only team left without an affiliation are the Blues because the San Antonio Rampage were affiliated with the Blues. and now the Blues are going to lose that affiliation. And then, there's going to be another expansion team, obviously, for Seattle. But yeah, it's just it's kind of hard to have your team in Texas if you're not in Texas, and Texas is a huge place, anyways, right?
Right.
So,
and they're moving them to Henderson, which is the town next door to Vegas.
is it like a suburb, or is it just like another city?
Yeah, it's another town, but it's basically a suburb. They're right next to each other. I mean, if you go south, I guess that'd be southeast. It's not that far. I mean, when I lived out there, I lived in Henderson a couple times. So
gotcha. So
it's not far.
Gotcha. Do people who live in Henderson say they live in Vegas, or do they say they live in Henderson?
It depends. Depends on the age of the people. If the people are older, they say Henderson because they don't want to be affiliated with Vegas. But most people just say Vegas because it's easier. Well, like, when you say Henderson, Nevada, people are like, where?
Where? Well, like the Chicago Wolves are in Rosemont, Illinois. That's where they play, but they're called the Chicago Wolves.
Yeah, Rosemont's a suburb.
Yeah, it is, but it's its own. I mean, it's its own place. It's its own suburb. Yeah, it's its own. It's not Chicago proper. So I'd be interested to obviously know who the Wolves are affiliated with. Hopefully, it's a cool team. I really like them being affiliated with the Knights. That was like really cool. I felt a little smug about that, being a Wolves fan since day one, because it was just like, look at this, the cool new hot expansion team, and who do they want to be affiliated with? The Wolves. You know what I mean? That just because I've been going to games for years, so I just thought, this is exciting, right? I mean, probably I didn't really care so much for the affiliation with Vancouver, though Eddie Lack was like our number one goalie, and he went on to play in the NHL. And with the Blues, I mean, they had both Jake Allen and Jordan Binnington played for the Wolves, so that's pretty exciting. I mean, they've had some good NHL caliber players, play in the AHL with the Wolves for a few seasons and move up. So, and then there's like some rumor that like, wouldn't it be cool if they were affiliated with the Blackhawks? I'll tell you right now, that's not going to happen unless the Blackhawks ditch the Rockford Ice Hogs, which, it's like a 2-hour, I think it's like 2-hour drive or something from point A to point B, but still, like, they want, I don't know. It's close enough, but I don't think the Blackhawks would be interested in having a minor league team in Chicago unless they had control of the team. Because if you look at all the other teams where the minor league team is in the same municipal region, it's owned by the parent club, right? San Jose Barracuda, Toronto Marlies, the Vegas whoever whatevers. I'm probably forgetting one or two, but so that should be fun to see what happens there. But anyway, so our big topic for today is the Miracle on Ice hockey game. Well, not so much the hockey game, because everybody knows what happened in that hockey game, or almost everybody knows. The Miracle on Ice, 1980, U.S. Olympic hockey team, a group that was basically made up of college kids, beat the Soviet Union hockey team 4-3. That was not the gold medal game. A lot of people think it was for the gold medal. No, that got them to the next game, and they beat Finland for the gold medal. And that was the thing, is like, it was different back then. It was just kind of like you played, and then whoever like had the best record got the gold medal, and whoever didn't have the best, who had like the second best record got the silver medal and stuff. It was a lot different back then. It wasn't like the whole bracket tournament now. But anyway, so 1980, Miracle on Ice, that was when the U.S. Olympic team beat the Soviet Union 4-3. 2 nights later, USA went on to win the gold medal. And as far as hockey goes, it's considered the greatest international hockey game of all time. Hockey News put out a special issue in the fall called The Greatest Games. It had the top 5 international games, the top 5 junior games, the top 5 Stanley Cup final games. Like, it just was kind of going through all these different things. And so this was based on the Hockey News. Their number one game was the Miracle on Ice, and then the number two game was the 1972 Summit Series, Game 8, Paul Henderson scoring. Their number three article, do you know which one that was?
Canada Cup in
what year?
87.
Yes. And you know who wrote that article?
Who wrote the article about the Canada Cup?
Yeah, in that Greatest Games issue. I'm just messing with you. I wrote it. That's why
I was just going to say, is this a trick question?
Yeah, no, it's not. Because, like, when
I will take Sal Berry for 200, please.
Yeah. So when they said to me, hey, do you want to write about the 87 Canada Cup? I'm like, heck yeah, I want to write about the 87 Canada Cup. But then when I realized, like, when the issue came out and I see Team USA on the cover, I was like, oh, I would have liked to have written about Team USA, like, instead of the Canada Cup. But I think at the same time, like, being an American and writing about a Canadian-Russian series, I was able to be a little more detached and objective from it. And whereas I think with USA, I would have probably been a little less neutral on the subject. But anyway, so I mean, Hockey News considers it the greatest international hockey game of all time. What's unique about this is that because these players, not all of them made it to the NHL, so the collectibles for them were kind of helter-skelter, right? Like, people will collect their favorite player, people will collect their favorite team, and now it's easier to collect, if you wanted to, like, collect cards of the Miracle on Ice players, but it wasn't always that, I don't say easy, but like in the early years. So what I did is I made up a list of some of the cards. So if you recall, going back, well, you wouldn't recall this. I've never seen these. So apparently there was a set of Olympic hockey cards, 18 black and white photos from the 79-80 season. I've never seen these cards. Apparently they look like they share a design of the Baltimore Clippers minor league set, which I've never seen either. So I don't know what the deal is with these. I've, in all my years of collecting, now I haven't scoured eBay all the time for them, but I've never come across them, right? And then there was also a 1980 U.S. Olympic team mini picks set, which were 16 black and white photo cards. So also black and white, 14 player cards, one coach card of Herb Brooks, and one, they call it a scorecard. And these are really small. These were like 1 3/4 by 2 3/4. So they were smaller than average trading card size. So I've never seen any of those. Have you ever seen any of those?
Can't say that I have.
Right.
I've seen a picture of the Olympic cards, but I've never seen one in person.
Gotcha.
Yeah. They're kind of like, it's just like a big white border, and the player photo is got like almost like the sepia color to it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But I've never seen one in person, though.
So then the first mainstream cards to feature the Miracle on Ice players was the 1980-81 Topps and O-Pee-Chee set. So 80-81 Topps was one that had the scratch-off puck covering the name, and 80-81 O-Pee-Chee had that same puck shape, but it didn't have the scratch-off material. So the players in that set, Jim Craig, Ken Morrow, Mark Johnson, Mike Ramsey, Dave Christian, Robin McClanahan, and Steve Kristoff. So those guys all joined their NHL teams after the Olympics wrapped up. And the cards are unique that they have a USA Hockey team logo on them. So they actually have a USA Hockey logo and just highlight that, hey, these are the guys that were on that Miracle on Ice team. And what's interesting is that insignia carries over onto the O-Pee-Chee version of the cards. So I think that's kind of neat that even in the cards, the versions of the cards that were sold in Canada had that USA logo on them.
Yeah, and that wasn't everybody that actually made the NHL, because other guys came out later. But that was the vast majority of the guys. I mean, 20 players, and I think 13 made the league afterward.
Yeah, but what I'm saying is that those 7 joined the NHL, their NHL teams in 1980.
Right after the tournament.
Right. Guys like Dave Silk and Jack O'Callahan and Neil Broughton, they got cards later on.
Yeah.
Those guys were included in that set. And then, I mean, there were guys, like obviously like later on, like Neil Broughton, Mark Pavelich, they're in the 82-83 O-Pee-Chee set. Bill Baker's in the 83-84 O-Pee-Chee set. Dave Silk, Jack O'Callahan, they're in the 84-85 O-Pee-Chee set. O'Callahan's also in the top set. And then Eruzione, because he never played in the NHL, he retired after his I believe he retired after that. He didn't pursue an NHL career.
Correct.
He is in a couple of oddball sets in the early 80s. I mean, now he's in a lot of sets, and that's great because he's an American icon as far as hockey players go, U.S. hockey players go. But he was in a couple of offbeat sets. So there was a set in 1983 called History's Greatest Olympians. There were 2 hockey cards in that set. It was a 99 card set, and it had 2 hockey players. It had Mike Eruzione and Jim Craig. Now, the thing is that there's 2 variations of those particular cards. They either have an insignia at the top that has like a red, white, and blue star, and that's referred to as the star in motion because it was meant to look like a shooting star. I just thought it was a red, white, and blue stars overlapping, and that's just what it is to me. So I always called that the stars version. But then there's also another version that has the Olympic rings, but in black, up in that box area. And so that's the other version of that card. So those could be
Which one's more rare?
In my finding from people that I spoke with, and I actually wrote about this set. It was one of my first articles for Sports Collectors Digest a couple years ago. My article came out right around the time of the 2018 Winter Olympics. The Black Rings version is harder to come by. That one was sold exclusively at 7-Eleven, whereas the other ones, and they came out in 7-Eleven, and I believe they were sold in rack packs. But the ones that were sold, the ones with the stars, they were sold in rack packs, and they were also sold as a box set. So those appear to be much more plentiful than the one with the black rings. So gotcha. I guess you could say those are Eruzione's rookie cards. Now, they look like Topps cards. They were actually printed by Topps. They were printed on the same stock as their 83 baseball cards. The reason why they don't say Topps on them is because a small promotional company called Finder Image International made those cards. But what they did was then they went to Topps and they said, hey, we have the license to make Olympic trading cards, but we've never made trading cards before, so we're going to contract you to do it for us. And Topps said, okay, and they made them for them. So they basically, from what I was told, Topps negotiated all the contracts with the athletes because they were good at doing that sort of thing. They printed and packaged the cards, and then Finder Image worked on the marketing and promotion of those cards. And actually, there's a couple of different sets that don't have like Topps logos on them. Well, there's the 83-84 M&M set. Have you ever seen that? That's another box set.
Yes.
Yeah. So Eruzione has a card in that, but that one came out a little bit later. So I consider the other one his like rookie card, even though they both use the same photo and they look very similar. And then,
but that one actually does have the Topps logo on it. Does it not?
It does not. Let me look. Let me bust out the magnifying lens on this. Nope. 1983 Finder Image International, manufactured under license of L.A. Olympic Organization Committee.
That's the M&M's one?
Yes, it is.
Huh.
I know, but they look like Topps cards.
I could have sworn the M&M's one actually had a Topps logo.
No, sir.
Huh. Interesting.
So got it right here in front of me. So anyway, so those are some early Mike Eruzione cards. And then really after that, and then if you want to talk about Herb Brooks, I mean, he did have a postcard in the 87-88 Minnesota North Stars team issued postcard set. never seen those in person. And it's not really a trading card. It's not trading card sized. So I guess what I'm going to say, this is his rookie card. 1991 Impel, U.S. Olympic Hall of Fame. So after Finder Image did their various Olympic sets, because there was also the set on the Hostess boxes and Coca-Cola packaging, although Eruzione did not appear on any of those. No hockey players did. 1991, Impel made a set called the U.S. Olympic Hall of Fame. It was a 90-card set, and 11 of the 90 cards are hockey cards. They are cards from the 1980 Miracle on Ice. Brooks has one card that's just him as a hockey player from the 60s. I don't know if that's him in the 60 from the 1964 team or the 1968 team, because he played on both of those teams. But I'd consider that his rookie card. And then the other 10 cards have like group photos or action shots, either like all the players on the ice celebrating or like action shots from games. Have you seen those at all?
Yeah, I have a few of those.
Okay. It's not a bad set. I mean, I think I bought the full set for like a couple of dollars, because it was just like, well, this way I get all the hockey cards. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So those are like the early ones. And then a couple of other oddball ones that I'm just going to list off here. There's a big one I'm going to get to. But Sports Illustrated for kids, they did a card of Mike Eruzione in a 1992 issue, and they did a card of Mark Johnson in a 1998 issue, but that Mark Johnson card actually pictures Mark Wells. Starting Lineup also made a Mike Eruzione action figure in their 1998 Legends series. I think it was Timeless Legends or something like that. And as you know, starting lineup figures almost always came with the trading card. And then the really big one, the one that gave rookie cards to guys who like either ended up in the minors, played just a teeny tiny bit in the NHL, or retired. The 1994-95 Signature Rookies set.
That's probably the most famous and most prevalent one you'll find.
Yes, and that's a good set. It's really a good set. We all think signature rookie cards are garbage, but this is the one good thing that they did.
Yeah, I mean it's a very aesthetically pleasing set too, I think. The way it's designed and the colors and the shots that they got from players, because it's got a mix of, action shots where the players are isolated, and also, other types of shots. Like there's pictures of guys, getting the medals at the award ceremony. There's pictures of guys like in the locker room.
Yeah.
So I think it's a well done set, and I had always been chasing the singles and trying to put the set together, and shockingly enough, over the weekend with Hockey Card Day, my local shop had a sealed set that was in perfect condition sitting in a case. And I said, where in the world did this come from? He's like, I don't know. I bought a collection a couple weeks ago and it was just in there. I was like, I'll take it. And that was the end of that.
It came in a red box?
Yeah, I got the red box one. So it's the gold edition.
Gold medal edition.
Gold medal edition.
Yeah.
And I know there's also a blue box too.
Now, I don't know what the story is with the blue box, because I've only seen those.
Yeah, the blue box says commemorative edition. It doesn't say gold edition. But I've never seen one open to tell if there's different cards in there or different pictures. The cards are going to be the same. Different.
So here's what's up with that set, because the set was sold in a couple of ways, and it's actually a pretty affordable set. I mean, I'm assuming it was do you mind saying what you paid for it?
$15.
Nice. That's what I think it's worth. I bought two of them for $10 a set a couple years, probably 10 years ago.
I found the rare eBay auction that closed at $12 or $10, but the vast majority of them are in the $20 to $30 range.
Okay. And that's fine too. So here's the deal with those cards. So 94-95 season, because 1995 would have been the 15th anniversary of the Miracle on Ice. It was a 50 card set. It was sold a couple of different ways. So it was sold in packs. So a pack had 5 cards plus 1 autographed card, which actually I didn't realize that. Like, actually, I don't even remember that set coming out. Like, I kind of vaguely remember coming out, and then I remember one year, many years later, I was at a national in Chicago. This could have been 2008 or 2011. I had pretty deep pockets then. So it had to be 2008 because I think I went just for one day and I didn't have a whole heck of a lot of money on me. And I think somebody had a sealed box and he wanted $130. And I'm like, $130? Why is it so much? And he's like, oh, well, there's autographed cards. And I'm just thinking most of these guys were pretty accessible as far as like writing to them for autographs. So it didn't seem like, other than Herb Brooks, who had passed by then, and Craig Patrick, who was known to not sign through the mail, I was just thinking all of these other guys I could get, either at shows or I could write to them. They were all pretty accessible. What I didn't realize at the time was that there was 1 autograph per pack. So, I mean, back in the day, a set like that, I mean, it might have been like $4 or $5 a pack anyways. So 130 wasn't too far off based from that. Now I kind of wish I bought that because I would have liked to have busted it and like tried to put together an autographed set. That might have been fun.
Yeah, have you seen what the prices of those are now, if you can find them?
Yeah, they vary from like $15 for some of the guys to anywhere of like over $100 for, someone like Brooks, even more so.
Yeah, I've seen full sealed boxes, and most of them are going for 600 plus.
Wow.
Yeah.
So oh, okay, yeah, for the boxes. So
yes.
The boxes were limited to there were 4,850 boxes made. 2,000 copies of each autographed card. And now what differentiates these cards from the packs, from the ones that came in the box set, is along the left-hand side, it says in gold foil, 1 of 24,000. The ones that came in the box set, so there was 9,099,999, that many boxed sets in the red box that say gold medal set.
Math is hard.
Down math is well, saying 9,999 was giving me trouble. Down the side of that set, instead of saying 1 of 24,000, it says gold medal set on the left edge. So right. I'm assuming that the one that came in the blue box says something different along that edge. I don't know, because I've never seen one, and I don't know how many sets there are. I would like to try to put together one built from packs, but all the ones that I saw on eBay said gold medal set on them, so they're from the boxed sets.
Gotcha.
And now you know.
Yeah, and I think most of the singles that I accumulated prior to picking up the full set also are from the box set.
There'd be no reason to break the box set because there's no autographs in there.
Right.
It just seemed that like signature rookies.
And I really wanted to open it, but then I was like, nah, I'm not going to open it.
You should open it.
I don't want to open it.
You should open it for 2 reasons.
If I can find another one, I'll open the other one.
Gotcha. See, I bought 2, and one I'd mail the cards out to the players to get signed, and the other one I put into pages. But it's that kind of gloss where I feel like if you wait much longer, they're going to stick together. Yeah,
that's a big problem with cards from that era, especially ones that are on thinner cardstock.
One of my minor grails, and you're going to laugh when I tell you this, I want a set of arena holograms. The arena
No, don't say it.
Arena draft pick cards.
Don't say it.
Where they're in the tuxedos.
Oh God, I knew you were going to say it.
Because all the cards that I had were stuck together and I had to peel them apart. And so I want a set that's like pristine, and that's impossible to find because nobody I think I bought a set a year later after it came out for like $1, and I want to say the cards were, maybe they were stuck together or maybe not. I don't know. Those might have been okay. But like more recently, I bought a grab bag that had the English version of the set, And I was like, oh, cool, I actually need the English version. And it was just like a brick, and they were stuck together. And I tried peeling them together, and then you just get that little bits of paper loss, and I hate that. So that's actually something like I need to find somebody who bought that set back in 91, put it in pages right away, forgot about it for 27 years, and now will sell it to me, or 28 years or whatever. 92, I think.
Good luck with that. I have some individual ones, but that's one of my on my list of dumbest cards ever made.
I think it's on everybody's list of dumbest cards. It's pretty damn terrible. But getting back to the Miracle on Ice, and then in 0405, Upper Deck put out a set called Legendary Signatures, and they made an 18-card set called Miracle Men, which there were signed and unsigned versions of these cards. And, actually, I want to say, though, poor Steve Janicek cannot get a break because on his cards from the Signature Rookies set, he's in a tracksuit from the medal ceremony. They don't even have him sitting on the bench as a backup goalie, in a uniform with the blocker hand hanging over the boards. And then in his set in the 0405 Upper Deck Legendary Signatures Miracle Men set, he's also in a tracksuit. So it's just like, poor dude he's never pictured as a hockey player.
Well, in his defense, he kind of wasn't, but.
Well, in his defense, he
didn't play a single minute of that tournament.
No, but he won the national championship with his team that prior year under Brooks. So right. I mean, he was one of Brooks's guys. But I just recently, or not too long ago, I just rewatched the movie Miracle, the Disney movie Miracle, and they're talking, Coach Brooks and the other hockey people, and they're like, "Oh, you want to play Jim Craig, but Janicek won you a state champion or won you the national championship," and he's like, "We're not trying to win a national championship. We're trying to beat the Russians, right?" So,
right. Well, and that was part of the whole thing is Herb Brooks, known for being a great college coach, brings together 70 some college and amateur players to come together, and who's going to make this team. And it ends up being 20 guys that were all off of top notch programs across the country that had won titles and won championships and won tournaments. And, these are guys that are considered, the top of their game, but they're amateurs and they're going to get up against the biggest powerhouse hockey team ever. Some would say it was like the best assembly of a hockey team of all time. And it's like, how do you fight against these guys? Well, you match them at their own game, and that's what he did. And so it's like, yeah, we have guys on this team that won titles and everything else, but maybe they're not the best one to be out there on the ice because we're trying to play a certain game, and we're trying to match speed, speed for speed, because no one's ever done that to the Russians. No one's ever played the Russian version of hockey against them.
Right.
And that's exactly what he did. So yeah, the guy that you would think that would be slated to be the number one guy wasn't the number one guy.
Well, and because it was a different game. I mean, It was like you said. Now, what's interesting about that game is that a couple of things, because, obviously I read that Hockey News issue about all these different great games. The one about Miracle on Ice. One is that Russia was not used to being behind. They were used to getting a sizable lead.
Oh, yeah.
And then taking their foot off the gas and then just kind of not going through the motions, but just kind of keeping the other team at bay. They were not used to having to come back from behind. Now it's like, oh no, now we have to pull our goalie, and which they weren't able to do. We have to pull our goalie, and we have to try and score a tying goal, right? And they were never in that situation. They weren't used to that situation. They were able to score a bunch of goals when there was lots of time on the clock, but when it came down to that last minute or two, they bombarded Craig with shots, but they couldn't pull even. Actually, I don't even say they bombarded him, because in that oral history, they just said a lot of the shots they took were dump-ins from the blue line, and they were like far shots. And the reason for that is because when there was that last minute of play, Herb Brooks put the youngest guys out there on the ice. Put out the youngest guys because they'd have the most stamina and energy, fresh legs, you know what I mean? But they were the youngsters, right? And the team
Right.
was all pretty young, but they put out the young guys, right? What did Viktor Tikhonov do? He put out the most experienced guys, but he basically rode them to try to get that goal. But there were some guys out there who were like in their late 20s, early 30s, the guys like Karlamov, right? Like Valery Karlamov. So Brooks countered that with like youth, and just said, yeah,
Right.
they don't have to be the most experienced hockey guys out there. I mean, one-on-one, Karlamov would probably be a better player than one of the other players out there, but they were just younger and faster, and they were fully energized. And Tikhonov just left his older guys out there for too long and relied on them, and that's another reason why they lost. So I mean, this is one of those games where it was like it had every bit as much to do with the coaching as the performance of the players.
Yeah, and you're right. I mean, look at that tournament. If you go back and look at the scores, leading up to that game, I mean, the Russian team, they played like Japan and beat them 16-0.
Right.
And then they played, was it Belgium or Netherlands or something?
Mm-hmm.
Once like 17-4. I mean, so none of their games they were all extremely lopsided.
Mm-hmm.
Because nobody could compete.
Mm-hmm.
And it was like that year in and year out. Every year they'd go. I mean, it was like, okay, we're playing for silver is pretty much what it was.
Mm-hmm.
But that's the other thing too. I mean, that because of the time frame that we were in and because of everything that happened in the world leading up to that. I mean, even in just a few months before that, with the invasion of Afghanistan,
Mm-hmm.
the Iran hostage crisis, and everything else. I mean, we're in the middle of the Cold War, and
Yeah.
it's like the evil enemy. The USSR. They stand for everything that is anti-American, and we were feeling pretty down on ourselves. So the fact that they were able to go in and just do what nobody expected
Mm-hmm.
was hugely uplifting to the American spirit, and I think that's why it's so endearing to many people, whether you were alive and watched it at the time or saw it later. I mean, even my kids know what the Miracle on Ice was, and they know about it.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, you're talking 40 years later.
Yeah. Pretty important game. And obviously Disney, not obviously, but Disney made a movie back in 2004 called Miracle. Not the first dramatization of that game, but the most recent and probably the best. There was a 1981 movie called Miracle on Ice, and they used a lot of game footage for that because that's just what they did.
Was that the made-for-TV one with Carl Malden?
Yeah, the made-for-TV
Yes.
one with Carl Malden, right?
Yeah. I think Carl Malden played a better Herb Brooks, to be honest with you.
Yeah, I think he did too. He probably looked more like Brooks, and Kurt Russell's probably a little too good looking to be Herb Brooks, but whatever, that's Hollywood for you, right?
Yeah, exactly.
I'm not saying Herb Brooks was ugly. I'm just saying, hey, if Kurt Russell played me, even now, that'd be fine. that'd be okay. I'd be like, yeah, that's cool. Just throw some glasses on him, and sure, we'll just pretend, right?
Here we go.
Another little plug, which I'm just going to throw out there, is that the newest issue of the Hockey News has a making of the film Miracle that I wrote. It's 10 pages long. I talked with some of the actors. I talked with some of the filmmakers. I talked with a guy who played one of the Russian players, Todd Harkins. He was a former Flame and Whaler, and he played Valery Karlamov in that. I talked with Patrick O'Brien Dempsey, who played Mike Eruzione. I spoke with Kenneth Mitchell, who played Ralph Cox, the guy who gets cut last. I talked with Bill Ranford. We all remember Bill Ranford. Bill Ranford was the stunt double for Jim Craig, or he was for the actor who played Jim Craig, because that actor just, you saw his face, but when they put the mask on him, it was Bill Ranford doing all the stunts, the goalie stunts. And then I also talked with the cinematographer and a couple other people. So, or that's almost all of them. A few other people. So check that out. The Making a Miracle in a new issue of the Hockey News, which is on newsstands right now. So it was actually really cool to write about that film because I learned a lot of stuff. Like one little interesting tidbit I'll just throw out there from my article was originally they asked Bill Ranford to do the stunt work, and he declined because he said he didn't want to be away from his family for 3 or 4 months. So then they had a junior B goalie as the Jim Craig stunt double. And he wasn't very good because he was a junior B goalie. So Todd Harkins talked about, like, he would shoot the puck, but he would, like, shoot it wide of the net, and the goalie would deflect the puck into the corner, as they were supposed to do for their play for that scene. And the director was like, no, I want you to shoot and make it look like you're trying to score. So Harkins was like, okay. So then the next 5 shots he takes, he scores all 5 shots. So then the director's mad. He's like, well, no, he's supposed to block the shot and knock it into the corner. And he's like, well, you're telling me to score, and this kid's a junior B goalie, so why don't we go get you a real goalie? So then they called back. He called up Bill Ranford again, and then Ranford was like, all right, I'll do it, because it was only for like the last 6 weeks of shooting and not for like the whole 4-month schedule. So then they brought him in to be the stunt double for the Jim Craig character. And then when that scene where Carr crashes the net and, like, everybody stops and they're wondering if the goalie's going to be okay. They shot that from different angles, but the one that they used where they actually collide, Harkins and Ranford got their timing wrong. And Ranford was actually concussed from that hit. Like,
Really?
Yeah, Harkins' knee hit Ranford in the head. And they were rehearsing it, and they didn't want to hurt each other, but they were rehearsing it. And then Harkins said, the last shot we did, I got my timing wrong. I hit Ranford. My knee hit him in the head. Ranford told me, he's like, yeah, I was concussed. He said, I had never been hit that hard as an NHL player. He said, but you know what? We only had a little bit of shooting left for, like, the schedule, so he just pushed through it. But if you go to the DVD extra features, you'll see that collision, and then you'll see a goalie skating away with the towel up on his head and blood running down his face, and that's Bill Ranford.
Dang.
Yeah. So, I mean, there were some cool stories in there. And I was just like, it was cool to hear that stuff. You know what I mean? That, like, oh, wow, like, because you never hear these things. Like,
Yeah.
You maybe you hear about them, but it's just so cool when you get to talk to people who did the thing that they did and hear these types of stories. So most of my hockey friends are like, oh, that's pretty cool. He wrote about Miracle. Because, everybody in the United States, I mean, everybody will be like, yeah, Slapshot. Slapshot's a classic. You can't touch that, right? Even if you don't like it, you can't touch it, right? And then Youngblood, you have people who love Youngblood or people who hate Youngblood. Mighty Ducks, you have people who love it or hate it. But Miracle is, like, loved.
Yeah, it's because it's such an endearing story. It transcends hockey. There may not have been a bigger message other than go out and win a hockey game,
Mm-hmm.
but it became a bigger message because of what it stood for at the time. And that's part of it. We talk a lot about these card sets that came out, but we haven't really covered anything in recent times.
Oh, yeah, please do.
Oh, okay.
Well, I mean, the only one I have in my notes is I know that in 2010-11, there was that In the Game Decades 1980.
Yes.
1980s, which you and I bought some boxes of at the National.
Yeah, and In the Game actually had Mark Wells, and he was signing at their table, I believe. Was that not? Yeah.
Yeah, because what happened was that he wasn't included in the set originally, but Dr. Brian Price was able to get him to come on board later, so they made an oversized version of the Mark Wells card that he signed for you at the show.
Right.
That was cool.
And I know Leaf in the last few years in various like Leaf Metal that came out in 15, as well as Signature Series, both did treatments for various players from the Miracle on Ice team. They also came out with I only saw it online and I saw it for sale and it was like $800 or something like that, but they put together a booklet card that has 16 signatures.
Wow.
From players. So that's pretty cool looking. I'm not big on booklet cards or necessarily Leaf in general, but that's a really nice looking card. I'm actually kind of surprised that with it being the 40th anniversary that somebody didn't come out with something. I mean, I understand Upper Deck has the NHL license, but we're not talking about NHL. We're talking about international or Team USA, or I don't know who the governing body would be to decide who can use what pictures, but I imagine it's 40 years old and the shots and the images are going to be that old. I don't know. Does that become public domain at some point, or
no? So what's going to happen with that? So, okay, a couple of things. I believe the reason why, now in the past I asked Upper Deck, I said, hey, 2018 U.S. Olympic women's hockey team wins the gold medal. How about a set of the cards of the women who won that medal, right? I would buy it. You would buy it. Upper Deck told me it would have a very short lifespan, meaning that like hockey cards from 2019-20 NHL hockey cards have a shelf life of a year or more, right? Because you're trying to build that set throughout the season, so you're going to buy cards from that year. And then maybe you'll go back and a bit, cards from 2 years ago, I still need those, right? And you might buy them. But something tied to an event like that, you'd be like, yay, Olympic hockey, cool, a set, I'll buy it, right? And then 6 months later, people be like, oh, the Olympics, yeah, that happened like 6 months ago. And they might not be that interested in it.
Yeah, I guess.
So I think that with this set,
I
would love to see a set like this. This is something Upper Deck could have planned, Upper Deck, or hell, Topps, because Topps included Mike Eruzione in an Olympic set from a couple years ago. I forget which one, but there's like signed versions of the cards. Because I know,
and they also had in 2011 there was a Miracle on Ice card in the American Pie set that they came out with, which is like a pop culture type.
Is that Topps or is that Panini?
No, it's Topps.
Oh, okay.
Panini did. I forget what theirs is called.
Americana.
Yeah, Americana. That's it.
Barf. A card of a surfboard. Yay.
Well, Topps American Pie is more pop culture. There's
a card
Miracle
of a
on Ice card in there.
So. Okay, that's cool. I'll need to track that one down.
I think there's a regular and a foil version.
Here's an interesting little tidbit. 1980, it was cornflakes. I'm pretty sure it was cornflakes. Cornflakes or Frosted Flakes. There was a ice hockey trading card from 1980. It has nothing to do with the Miracle on Ice, but I bought it for like $1 or $2. So it's 1980 Kellogg's Olympics sticker, spelled STICK''R, sticker trading cards. So it's a hardback sticker. And the front of it just has a generic shot of an international game. I don't even know what teams they are because the logos are airbrushed out. And then on the back, it just has a description of ice hockey. So it's funny because it's a card, and it has the 1980 Winter Games Lake Placid logo on the front of it. So it's like it has to do with Lake Placid. It has to do with ice hockey, but it has nothing to do with that particular team. But I still thought it was just such a neat little thing because it was from 1980 and it had to do with hockey. But the Americana card, that would probably have like the actual players from the Miracle on Ice. And this was issued prior to the Miracle on Ice because it was part of a set of Olympic sticker cards that Kellogg's put out.
So it came out before the actual game was played.
Yeah, and folks, be sure to scroll down if to check the links because I try to link to all of the stuff that I talk about. Yeah, because it's just basically the back is just a generic text. Ice hockey is played by two opposing teams on an ice surface known as a rink, blah, 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 right? So it's a hockey card from that year with the Olympic logo on it, but it doesn't really have anything to do with the actual team, which that would have been way awesomer.
Yeah, it would.
I was going to say, getting back to our discussion about a box set, yeah, that would have been great for the 40th anniversary. And that would have been something that, like, Topps could have gotten the rights to, because, I mean, they've already done some of these sets with players in them, whether it's Eruzione or Jim Craig or some of the newer players or some of the women's players. So, yeah, that would have been a really cool box set. I mean, I could see something like that at Target for, like, $14.99 or $9.99 or something, you know, hanging on a peg.
Put it in like a blaster, and like every 10 blasters has an autograph of somebody in it or something.
Love it, love it, love it. Do a blaster. You got your 20 players, you got your 2 coaches. Then you should probably do like a card of the Russian game, a card of the gold medal game, and a scene from the medal ceremony. There you go, 25 card set. And then you could do 5 parallel versions, gold medal parallels or whatever, with the text in gold or whatever. Yeah. And then you could do like a random autograph one in every like 10 boxes or something. That would be sweet.
If you want to take it a step further, maybe you can, well, whoever makes it can try to track down the guys that either don't sign anymore or can't sign anymore. Mm-hmm. For various reasons. Like, I don't know, Herb Brooks, because he's no longer with us.
Yeah, Bob Suter.
And somebody doesn't sign anymore. Oh, Mark Pavlich doesn't sign anymore.
Really?
Yeah, he's not in good shape.
Oh, I'm sorry to hear that.
I don't know if it was CTE or not, but I know he's got effects of things the last time I heard. But yeah, I mean, other than that, you chase some of that stuff. Even I hate cut autos, but maybe if that's what you had to do, and they'd be like super rare ones that you could maybe find or something.
You know, it's a shame, because if it was, say, 1990, whatever, if this was the 90s, or if cards were like what they were in the 90s, yeah, the set would have come out by now. I mean, the one that came out in 94, 95 by Signature Rookies, that was kind of a big deal. I mean, that was cool. But we were, like, back then, I mean, if you think about it, we had NHL cards, we had minor league cards, we had junior league cards, we had these, like, one-off sets that came out. I mean, there were a lot of different food issues. I mean, there is no shortage of cards to collect. Now it's like Upper Deck puts the stuff out, or maybe there's some arena giveaways, or maybe there's some like at Tim Hortons, but it's much more finite. And I mean, even though like the teams do issue their own sets, like the AHL teams and the junior league teams, it's not like back when like Pro Cards was putting out, you know, these massive sets, or you know, some of the other companies that made like minor league or junior league sets.
Yeah.
I miss those days.
Well, you take the good with the bad.
Hey, speaking of bad, I want to just throw this out there really quick, because I remember back during the last Winter Olympics, I wanted to review this for Puck Junk, but I couldn't bring myself to do it. But I just want to mention it, because it has to do with the Miracle on Ice, albeit a little bit tangibly. So, you know the cartoon show American Dad?
Yes.
Okay, so my joke is that the funny jokes that are written go to Family Guy, and the unfunny jokes go to American Dad.
I don't know about that.
Okay, so what's the dad's name? It's Stan, right?
Stan Smith.
And the alien is Roger.
Correct.
So Stan is telling his son Steve that he needs to have a hobby. He needs to collect stuff. So then he walks him into like his man cave, and he shows him his 1980 Miracle on Ice collection, because But then he goes, but then even then they had to spoil the joke. He's like, my Miracle on Ice and Ronald Reagan collection. So like half of the glass case has like Jim Craig's goalie pads and a Team USA jersey and whatever, and then the rest of it is like, I don't know, Ronald Reagan stuff, because the joke is he loved Ronald Reagan. But then Roger was like, oh yeah, the Miracle on Ice, I lived that. He's like, what? He goes, yeah, I was a part of that team, and he shows him the medal. So now what's funny is that they show like live action footage, but they put Roger in there celebrating with the team, or not footage, it was like photos. You saw that one?
Yeah, because he was on the team.
He was on the team, but then he revealed that he was on PEDs.
Yeah, he used steroids.
So then Stan is like, well, then this medal is ill-gotten. So then they travel to the Olympic flame to throw the medal in the flame, kind of like Lord of the Rings, and they're traveling to, what is it, Mount Doom or whatever?
Yes.
You know, so they could throw the ring into Mount Doom, right? So this sounded like a freaking hilarious episode, and I'm like, oh my God, this is so funny. And I watched it, and I was just like, yeah, this is dumb. There's a reason why I stopped watching this show. Not even the Miracle on Ice could save American Dad. At least not in my mind.
I like the show. I'm a fan, so.
Yeah. So just wanted to throw that out there. So there is that episode if you want to watch that or not. It was amusing. It was more so amusing because they like animated some of the characters, and they like, you know, actually had like the players voice those players. I thought that was pretty cool.
They should have done a Simpsons episode. That would be cool. Like they did with the baseball one, and had all the baseball players animated back in the day.
Mattingly shaved those sideburns.
Yeah. Exactly.
Love that. That's a great one. Yeah. Well, Simpsons always had the Lisa on Ice episode, and that was really good.
Yeah.
Well, anyway, so any other sets you need to mention before we sign off for the week?
That's really it. I mean, we covered pretty much most of the major releases. Like I said, those Leaf ones came out in the last few years. They're just more or less one-offs. They're not really sets that are devoted to a specific thing. But yeah, it would be interesting with the 40th anniversary, and then who knows, maybe the 50th, somebody will come out with something.
Oh yeah, that'd be awesome. All right, until next time, I want to thank you for listening to the Puck Junk Hockey Podcast. If you like this show, please subscribe to it. Please tell your friends about it. And also, if you want to support it, head on over to shop.puckjunk.com. I'm selling original t-shirts. I'm also selling some card sets that you might be interested in. Thank you for listening, and we hope you will listen to us again next time.
For more hockey goodness, follow us on Twitter @PuckJunk.